Okay, so let's wrap up our eggs, and if you didn't watch the previous video where I showed you how you can build this using Blender and ZBrush, I highly recommend to do so. And today we're gonna use InstaLOD to remesh the asset and InstaMAT for texturing, so let's just jump straight into it. So I already loaded my mesh into InstaLOD, and the reason why I'm doing this in the InstaMAT video is that it's quite a quick and easy process, so no need for an extra video, and I already have some separate videos on InstaLOD where I explain a bit more, so if you guys are interested, just check those out. And yeah, let's maybe first take a look at our model. So this is my high poly version. As you can see, we are at about 21.5 million polygons, and it's quite dense. And I'm aiming here for a hero asset, so our poly count doesn't have to be too low. So maybe between 10 and 50,000 polygons should suffice. And yeah, we don't really need to do much here. When we start clean, you first go to File and select New Profile. And then we choose Remesh. Then we click on Create Profile. And I leave most of the settings at default. So for example, the mode stays at Reconstruct, the fuzzy face count is set to normal. I'll bump up the resolution a bit and set it to high. I will turn on distinct construction so that all of our mesh parts or submeshes get remeshed separately. For the UVs, as InstaLOD will be doing an UV unwrap as well, I'll set it to hard surface actual, as this is a hard surface model. I mean, the handle here is, yeah, maybe a bit organic, but let's see what that does. The rest I leave as is, and I go to my texture settings here. What I need will be the tangent space normal. We don't need an object space. We need AO. We can turn off custom textures. We'll need mesh ID and curvature. And I set the resolution to 4K. And that's already all that we need to do. So I go over here and press start. So I went back and set the resolution back to normal as my polygon count was a bit too high. And yeah, now we are at 13,500 polygons. And yeah, looks good, I think. Looking at the handle here, it could have a few less polygons, but I think that's okay. And due to the distinct construction setting, as you can see, all of our submeshes are still available separately. But this also leads to a bit more polygons, as for example, those that you can't see would have been deleted by turning off distinct construction. And now I'll import that quickly into Blender and merge all the submeshes into one. So in Blender I have 3 different types of my eggs. So for example, this one is the one with distinct construction turned off, and it's just one mesh. And this would be the most optimized version, as it deleted all the polygons that are hidden. For example, when I go to this one, which is with distinct construction turned on, you can see the handle has polygons behind the blade, for example. And this is merged just into one object. And I often hear that people are not sure how to approach certain things, like for example modeling and yeah, what you want to have in the end. And honestly, for me, it's always what works best for me and what I want to do. For example, if I would want to animate this axe, I'd go for this mesh. So you still have all separate parts, and if I want to remove the blade from the handle, I could just do that. And again, if it's just a static object and you don't want to do anything with it, but just have it in your scene, or for example, also as a weapon in a first-person game, this would work as well. And yeah, again, this is the most optimized version of all of them. But it also lacks a bit of definition. So when I go up here, you can see this part is merged completely to the handle. And in this case, it's not. And I think for a close-up render, or in general for close-ups, I would go with this. Also, the normal map would do quite a lot still. And for this project, I decided to go with this one. So this is all parts separate, but it's still merged into one object. And the reason is that I don't want to animate that. And I also want to show the mesh submesh mask in InstaMAT. And also want to have it as one object, obviously. So I go with this. And this was my output from the distinct construction remesh operation. And this is already merged, so I would just select both, right click and use the join option here. So yeah, this will be my mesh. As you can see, we have all triangles. And this is also a thing that people don't know if they should use triangles or not. And in general, I think triangles are quite fine. I mean, for modeling, you'd use quads as it's easier to model with quads. But when it comes to a finished asset, then triangles are what you want to have. Because as soon as you import anything into a game engine, it will be triangulated nonetheless, and your GPU can only render triangles, so you don't necessarily want to have quads as the final output GAN. When you import it into the game engine, it will be triangulated, and yeah, quads are nice for modeling and animating and things like that, but your end result will always be in triangles. So yeah, we will use this mesh, and I've went the extra mile and made manual UVs just because, as you can see, as mentioned, polygons are hidden behind certain objects. So for example, like this part here, it's the inner part and you can't really see it. So I don't need to have it big in my UV space, and I can focus more on the more important parts like the handle or yeah, the blade itself. And I won't show the unwrapping workflow. And if you like, you can just use the output that InstaLOD gives you. As for triangular projection, it will suffice. So you don't really need to bother with that. And yeah, let's just go into InstaMAT and texture it. Here's my X in InstaMAT, and as we already baked in InstaLOD and have all of our maps ready, I just go to the package management here and import all of those. Then I go back to my layering project editor and can assign them. So for the AO, we just assign the AO, then the curvature, mesh ID, and normal tangent. And now I want to organize it a bit first. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 parts. So I create a multi-channel layer first, then a folder, and I call that blade. And I can already use a mask on this folder here. So I go to add mask and I'll use the mesh submesh mask. So it's this one. And this is quite an awesome mask. So as you saw, this object is completely merged, but I can still, with this mask, pick submeshes. So I just click on my blade here. And as you can see, it's perfectly masked out. I could also select another one. But I don't want to have my material seamless. So going from the blade to this metal part here. So I just pick the blade, and for the metal parts, I'll do a separate one. So let's create a multi-channel layer again. Use a mesh submesh mask. And let's pick this and this here. Maybe give it a different color for now. Sorry, let's create a folder first. And use the mesh submesh mask on this one. And then we can just pick those again. So this will be my side metal part. I'm not sure how this is called correctly, but yeah, this will suffice. And another multi-channel layer for the handle. So same as before. Actually, let's use a mesh ID to mask, because the wrap here is a separate mesh, but we still have some elements from the handle, like the part here between the wraps. So I want to use a mesh ID to mask on this one. Let's check for our color. So this is my mesh ID. I just pick it from the viewport here. Then I press M to return back. And as you can see, this is now masked out correctly. And we'll do one more for the wrap. So a new multi-channel layer. And let's use a mesh ID to mask as well. Let's check for the color. So it's the blue one. Let's change this color so we can see it a bit better. Maybe something different. So let's now name those nicely as well. So this was, let's see, this is my handle. And this was the wraps. And yeah, now I can basically start. And I forgot the folder again. So let's create a folder and use the mask on the folder here. And as you can see, by dragging and dropping it onto the folder here, it's still masked out correctly. So let's call this wraps or wrap. And yeah, now that we have organized it, we can just start texturing. And it has been quite a while since I textured it the first time, so this will probably look a bit different. And I also used a few of my custom maps and grunges. And for this tutorial, I will try to use only the things that are built into InstaMAT. So you can redo this as well. Let's start with the blade. And maybe let's turn those off for now. I first pick a grayish color, maybe something dark. I turn on roughness, and yeah, I don't want to have it fully rough, but also not fully shiny. And I also need metalness. So let's turn on metalness and set it to 100%. Now it's quite dark. Let's adjust the color here. So at first I'll do a few layers with the mesh projected mask. And to match my eggs from before, I think I'll use the smudges grunge. So let's adjust it a bit. Let's go to adjustments first and bump up the contrast a bit. Maybe the brightness. Yeah, like so. Maybe we could get rid of those fingerprints. It's not the size probably, but opacity. So now they are gone. Let's just duplicate this one. Let's adjust the seed here or change it. Let's play a bit with our values. Maybe something a bit brighter and a bit more shiny. And let's duplicate it again. And use a really dark color. Let's go to our mask and look for a nice seed. Like this. Yeah, looks good. Maybe a bit too dark. Maybe like that. And as you can see, every of those layers is influencing our result. And let's maybe duplicate it again and use a fractal sum instead of the smudges grunge. Fractal sum. And let's maybe go in and adjust it a bit again. Actually, let's set up the noise nicely. Contrast. And let's this. I think I overdone it here. Maybe we need some more gain. Maybe a bit more. And I think I want to make it a bit darker. And a bit less rough. Okay, so I think our base looks quite nice now. And I think for the other one, I had this top part here yellowish or gold, like a golden color. So let's do that as well. Let's create a new multi-channel layer. Let's set up the color like this maybe. And I think I paint this mask. So let's use mesh mask painting. And yeah, like so. Yeah, we'll fix that soon. Could have probably used symmetry here, but it's okay. So yeah, just a rough painting here. Okay, so now we need to get rid of those parts. So the hotkey for the eraser is Z or Z. So let's just quickly get rid of those. This side as well. Ah, that's not so nice. Yeah, I think that's okay. Let's maybe adjust the layer a bit. We don't want to have the gold too much in your face. And yeah, let's maybe adjust it a bit. Let's turn on roughness. A bit rougher maybe. And metallic as well. And we also want to have the dirt here. So let's maybe move it down a bit to this layer maybe. It's a bit too orange. Maybe like so. Yeah, I leave it at that. Now let's add some pores to the blade. So I create a new multi-channel layer. I'll turn off base color. I'll turn on height and set it to subtract. I'll add a mesh projected mask to this. And I'll look for grain. Let's add some roughness. So I want to have them rough. And I just want to have a slight effect, so I reduce the height amount here. Yeah, looks interesting, but maybe let's break it up a bit by using another mesh projected mask. And let's just use a clouds noise. Oh, the clouds heavy. Let's adjust it a bit. Let's check our roughness channel. So this is our base color, looks quite good. This is our roughness. Yeah, looks good. And I want to have some scratches as well, so I'll add a new multi-channel layer here. Or actually, let's just duplicate the one from before. And change the seed on the clouds heavy noise and then use scratches 3. Let's solo it out, see what we are actually doing here. Let's get rid of those bumps. Let's go to length. Let's see, can we override that? Yeah, nice. Bit of warp, but I don't want to have this distortion too much. Let's also change the gradient. So we want to have the gradient at 0.5. And also bump up the variance a bit. Let's adjust our width. I don't want to have them too visible. Let's adjust our layer here. They are rough. Our height. Let's maybe give them a color as well. Maybe a light grayish color. Yeah, looks good. Let's give it a bit of curvature details and edge wear. So I again create a new multi-channel layer. I set it to a light grayish color. Then I'll use the mesh mask builder. See the O. Let's check our AO. Actually, let's just do the curvature here. Let's edit. Let's do maybe both. No, let's just do the edges. Let's see how we can adjust this. So don't want to have it too visible. Can always reduce the opacity here as well. And I also want to break it up a bit. So let's use a grunge. Maybe the smudges again. I want to subtract it. Now everything is gone, so we need to play a bit with the contrast and balance. Let's add roughness. I don't necessarily want them to be shiny, but more, yeah, I think rough is better in this case. Check our roughness map. Might want to have it a bit more visible. And let's break them up with another grunge. Subtract it as well. And I'll use a fractal sum here. Let's bump up the scale a bit. And also the gamma and interpolate. And let's add custom gain. Yeah, I think this is good. You don't want to have it too visible, I think. So that looks quite good to me. Maybe I want to have the previous layer a bit rougher. Yeah, like this. Maybe let's make this one tinier again. Okay, now let's include a bit of rust. And I want to have a bit of rust in my cracks here. So this is my cracks layer. I'll add a reference. I create a new multi-channel layer, or actually an element layer. Let's just take a rust material from the library here. And I think I'll use this one. Set up the scale a bit. Want to have it a bit finer. Yeah, like this maybe. And yeah, I want to have the rust just in the scratches, and I did a small mistake here. I need to reference the mask and not the whole layer. So let's delete this and layer reference. Let's click on this mask and add a layer reference here. Then let's go back to our element layer with the rust and let's add a reference generator. Let's use the mask reference on scratch and set to internal mask. As you can see, I now have some rust in my scratches here. Let's also break it up a bit. So I use a mesh projected mask on this one. And maybe just the clouds heavy again. And let's see, let's adjust the scale. And let's go to adjustments and again play a bit with the contrast and brightness. Still a bit too heavy, I think. Maybe like this. Okay, so now let's do the blade here. And let's create a new multi-channel layer. Then let's use a mesh mask painting. And let's just paint it by hand. So I just want to have the sharp part of the blade here. I think this here can stay black. It's maybe not too realistic, but I kind of like the look. And as you can see, I have backface culling turned off, so the margin between the polygons is quite low, so it will paint through. And this is okay in this case. Maybe not here because we don't have the crack here. So I turn it off. And this is still untouched. But for the rest, I can turn it off. And let's just paint our mask. I need to delete it here soon. This. Rid of this. Okay, let's now set up our layer a bit. So I don't want to have it blue, but grayish. So let's add a height channel and set it to default to get rid of the height details. Roughness as well, so I want to have it more shiny, and metalness should be turned on as well. I want to get rid of all the details that we have on this part. Maybe a bit more shiny, but fully metallic, of course. And I want to improve the mask a bit, so I want to have a bit of... it shouldn't be as perfect as it is now. Maybe let's even use a different brush. Let's add a clouds noise to our SR brush. And let's also change or bump up the rotation at dynamics and the size a bit. So we want to make it a bit more interesting. Same with this side. We still have some of those details. I think that's okay, so I won't bother with those. Let's maybe sharpen up the mask a bit. Not too much. Let's add a reference here and create a new multi-channel layer. Let's call that plate, and let's use a reference generator and use the mask reference on blade. We use the internal mask. And I want to give it a bit of detail. So I turn off the base color. I turn on roughness and make it a bit rougher and also high, just slightly. And I set it to subtract. And then I use a mesh projected mask and a clouds noise. And I'll adjust the scale just on one axis. And I need to overwrite it by quite a lot. And increase the height a bit. Roughness as well. Let's maybe use a slope blur on that with a turbulent pearl noise as input. Quite a high scale. Let's set that to minimum and let's lower the intensity. Yeah, looks interesting. Maybe now adjust the roughness a bit more, or the height, to have a bit more of this detail. Let's reduce the intensity a bit. Oh, that looks too warpy. I like the look before. Also, I was aiming for something different. Maybe increase the scale of the turbulent Perlin noise. Maybe do 200. Maybe blur it a bit. Maybe a bit more. Yeah, to get the look right, what you are aiming for, it's always quite a back and forth and yeah, changing values and stuff like that. I want to break it up a bit. So mesh projected mask again. And let's use maybe a spot 7. Let's do some adjustments. Let's maybe decrease the opacity here. Okay, so obviously you could add more and more details, but let's focus on another part of the axe. I don't want to have the video too long again. And yeah, we still have quite a lot of work to do. So let's assume this is ready. And if you want to create something like this, you can always add more and more details to it. And I think I already showed you some nice workflows, so you can build onto that. But yeah, let's assume this is like you want to have it. And for this part, we make it quick. So let's just duplicate the whole folder here. And let's use this submesh mask here and drag and drop it onto this folder. And let's delete this one. Yeah, maybe let's delete the golden layer. And also change a few seeds. So I go to this one, to the mesh projected mask and change my seed here. Then this one, and this already should be enough. So we don't have a continuous material from the blade to this, but it looks separated. Okay, so this was quick. Let's now focus on the handle a bit. So this is the side metal part, and I can delete this one. And this is the handle. And let's add an element layer here. And let's look for railway wood. This one looks quite nice for this piece. I delete this one. So let's go to the projection and set it to UV. And let's rotate it by 90 degrees. Yeah, like this. 92. And this already looks quite nice. Let's maybe go to the material and let's see what we can adjust. The wood knots look quite nice, so I leave them. And I think the color is nice as well. Yeah, I think I just go with that. And now for those top parts here, as you can see the wood grain is wrong and you would have a wood knot here. And I created a decal for that. So let's use a new multi-channel brush. So let's just paint on here. And it's in the wrong direction, so I set the height to subtract. And I do the same at the bottom. maybe scale it up a bit and rotate. And it's not really a visible detail, but yeah, it adds to the immersion definitely. So yeah, we could also adjust the grain here a bit, but I think I stay with that. Let's quickly do the leather wrap then. I turn that on and I'll add an element layer. Let's look for a nice leather. I think this full leather large grain is quite nice for that. Yeah, I don't think I need to do too many adjustments here. Yeah, let's just stay with this. Then let's just create a multi-channel layer on top. Let's make it dark. Or actually, let's make a brownish, light brownish color. I want to include some, dust and dirt onto the into those crevices here. So I do this based on my AO. I want to have them rough. And let's just use a mesh mask builder. Go to our AO category here. Like that. I don't want to have too much. And as you can see, it gathers in the crevices here. So that's quite nice. Maybe let's also add some curvature. But just the cavities. Let's blur it a bit. And again, just play a bit with the contrast and balance. And yeah, now we're gonna break it up with the grunge. So we're gonna subtract from it. Let's use a spot 7 maybe. Let's solo it out and let's check how that looks. The mask. Yeah, maybe a bit more of AO. It looks quite nice. But I'm gonna go to the Grunge 2 input here and also subtract. And let's maybe just use the fractal sum again. So we can break it up nicely. Could also add on top, which might also look nice. Maybe let's go to the layer and adjust the colors a bit. Oh, I think I make it brighter, so like that. And we can add another layer. Let's just duplicate that and make this dark. And let's go to the mesh mask builder and play a bit with the seeds here. as well as for the secondary grunge. Let's maybe check a different HDRI. The bloom looks quite nice. It's quite cool as for this parts here it looks a bit like rust. Maybe we can add a bit of height as well to this. Now we even have a bit of that on the blade, so it's quite nice. So those are our maps. So this is the metalness, our normal map, the height, base color, roughness. Yeah, I think this looks good. Let's see how it looks at 4K. Maybe we can get back to our edgeware layer, which is somewhere here. And it's always a good idea to give those layers nice names so you know what is what, which I didn't do. Should be something with the mesh mask builder. So probably this here. Yep. Let's go to the curvature. And let's maybe make it a bit more visible. Probably should set it back to 2K. So yeah, those other layers break it up a bit, which is quite nice. So I don't want to have it too intense. It should be visible slightly, but not too much. Yeah, so we now textured our X. So let's keep it as is. Again, I don't want to be the video too long. So that's the end of the series and I hope you liked it and could learn something from that. If you have any questions, just ask me in the comments and yeah, thanks for watching and see you in the next one.